I had not been communicating with him except for saying, like, he'd be like, hey, how are you? And I'm like, I don't even want to talk to you. You're an absolute psychopath. What have you done? How dangerous are you? Like, I had no idea what he was capable of. So in 2019, I was not completely newly single. I have 2 kids that are now in their tweens and teens. But at that time, I had 2 young kids. And I had been gone through a very amicable divorce. And so I started to go out online dating as my friends were like, come on, get out there. You got to do this. And I was very naive in many ways and very honest and open, empathetic, meeting people. And as I went to go and meet people, I met some lovely men. And I unfortunately met one human in 2018, so it flows over 2018 to 2019, a time frame, that actually lied. And not lied just at a little layer. It was a web of lies. He even changed his name legally so I couldn't search who he was. So it was a pretty crazy experience. And the thing for me is that I'm not someone that would normally fall for these things. And this is what I understand as I've gone through this process. I've got 3 degrees, university degrees. I have been self-employed since I'm 24. There's so many reasons why that as women, we can be more vulnerable to these experiences. And it's one of the reasons why I come in. I thought this is a great opportunity to share how this person worked his way into my life, look at the red flags around it, around the ways that people behave and the choices they make, and then how do we heal from it. So when I met this Conman, his name then was Andrew Thompson. And I didn't know that his name was Andrew Tonks. So my gut reaction when I met him, there were lies, there were some sort of stories, and I was like, something doesn't quite feel right. So I'd go and Google, I'd do the research, because I'm a researcher, and nothing would come up. And so my thinking brain would come over and it would be like, oh no, this seems weird. He's telling me this thing and he seems really honest and he's showing up in this way that I haven't had before. And oh, how lovely that he's doing this. And oh my goodness, he's love bombing me. What a really nice way to feel after going through divorce and being single and all the things. And over the 6 months, so not a very long time, but he worked hard to invest his time into that relationship. And he actually lived further apart from me. So I didn't see him all the time, which is also a really interesting piece around when you are dating somebody, around how you feel when you leave them and kind of that feeling and the red flag around that. What does it feel like when they actually leave the room? And so there were sort of moments along the way, but it was just this place of grooming, that he would show up, he would share these things around how he wants to help me get ahead, or he'd listen to a story that I would tell about the way that I'd been working or done property investments before and how I really love that. And he's like, oh, that's so good for you. It's so interesting. And then a few weeks later, he'd come in with this, hey, I think I can help you out with getting back into property and doing all these things. And so it was like a slow little wee weave of stories that became kind of like, oh, well, that's interesting. Okay. And the short story, because there's a lot more of it, he met family, he met my kids, he met some friends of mine. And around the 5-month mark, he started to put things on the table around investments, red flags. And it really was actually on the table. I went out one day to run a women's retreat that I do. And I came back and there was this like little 1-page note around, hey, here's the idea that I have around helping you with the businesses that I've set up. And he'd also set up fake businesses in New Zealand, which he couldn't do technically. And that was because he had a criminal history, which I didn't know about because of his past name change. And so there was all these things that seemed like he was legit. I worked with my lawyer to then go, okay, this is a really interesting opportunity. Can we make this work? What legal documents do I need? Because he'd put a document being like, here, you can sign this and this will be perfect. I'm like, nah, that ain't good enough for me. There's no way am I going to sign that. So I went to the lawyers and thought, look, let's just explore this. I'm curious. And over a few weeks, kind of went through that process. I talked about it with a really good friend of mine who I used to run the retreats with. And she just sat and was like, She's a really spiritual person, really gut, body-led person. And if it wasn't for her, I would not be where I am today because she listened to her gut so deeply in that moment where I was completely tuning mine out. I was like, okay, well, this is an opportunity. My financial scarcity mindset had been very much on overdrive since divorce. And I was like, I've got to make this work. I've got to provide for my family. This week, I just need to figure out how I make this work to get ahead and provide this life that I want for them. And unfortunately, he knew that was my driver and used that as the catalyst to be like, I can help you be there for your family and be there for your kids. Wouldn't that be amazing, babe? Babe, I hate how he said that. He was actually Australian, so don't confuse me with an Australian. I do love a lot of Australians, but that was his background. And so it then became quite a very quick time frame where I did this investment. Part of me still has this gut reaction when I talk about the investment because it was actually at that stage part of my mortgage. Okay, like definitely 101, do not do this. So part of my business, not my business, but my house, I've been able to purchase a home and I was really well set up. I lived in a beautiful area and I'd worked really hard, even post-divorce, to be at that stage with the kids. And I had some flexibility with my mortgage to then be able to do other investments, other things. And so he's like, yeah, put as much as you want into my company and here's the interest rate that I'm going to pay you back, which was amazing, also a red flag with it. And so I did that and he did exactly what he said, which was pay back the interest every week, which is, of course, he was paying back with my money to me. And the initial payment, and this is where it kind of makes me go, it would have been around $25,000. But that was the initial part. The next bit, about a few weeks later, he's like, I can help you out. Let's go this next stage. We've already got the legal stuff in place, And this is the thing. It was a special relationship as we go through with the court process that made me realize it's why it's so different and how financial abuse in relationships is something that first I don't talk about and women don't understand and see these red flags. And I didn't because I came from very much a background of trust, of my parents being married for years. It just wasn't on my radar that someone could behave this way. And so then I was like, okay, this is working. What is the risk? He is a good human, I say in air quotes, because I didn't know the fact that he'd lied. And I had the backup of my lawyers and my documents. If anything went wrong, then I was entitled to the companies that he'd already been involved with. And at that time, I wasn't just the only pawn in his game. Like there was much more going on at the time.
Right.
He actually had a gin and vodka company in the area that I lived that he was also purchasing half of, and that was on the cards. He was also looking at buying a restaurant. Like he had been playing small, and he was like, to be honest, he did really well juggling it. Like I looked back and I was like, good on you. You did so well. Like that could have all fallen over until I got there. And I have to laugh at it because I honestly look at this process and go, what the absolute psychopath you were doing to even get to that point. And so I then got to the point of going, yep, I'm going to reinvest, went back to the bank, and my bank were all on board as well. These are people that had seen this and were like, yep, I can see what you're doing with this. Because he was also involved with having an account out there, didn't mean he had any legitimate interest or anything like that, but he had an account at the same bank that they were like, okay, let's do this. You've got your legal documents. So the short story then was I then invested a big chunk of money. The total, and from the 50,000 to the 25,000 would have been $150,000. So a huge chunk. As a single mum, as a business owner, I've never, my biggest investment was a property and I loved it. I love property. That was my thing. I knew, right? But this was a big piece. It gets crazy. So that was April the 9th, 2019. On April the 10th, 2019, my good friend sends me a message on Messenger and was like, I need to talk to you. Is Andrew there? And I was like, no, he's not here. She sends me a link. It was the article of him in the New Zealand paper where he'd been arrested under the other name. She's like, we think this is Andrew. We're really worried. I want to talk to you about this. And I'm like, yeah, gut drop. I can feel it flooding me now because it still comes through, the sensation.
Yeah.
So crazy. And that day was the day that I learned what fighting was about. I didn't think I was a fighter, but it was one of the days that I really put the stress and resilience tools into action. And to be honest, I thought I was brave, and I thought there was moments where I was like, I can speak in public and do these things. I can bungee jump. I've put bravery into action. I had no idea how strong I'd be into that day. And that day was crazy. So I ended up like going into shock in many ways and not knowing how to deal with it. My friend came around and we were like, how do we deal with this? What are we doing? I still had to go to work, which was one of the craziest things, to be like, okay, I can see what you're saying here, but I can't change it. I've just invested so much. I can't change this in this moment. I am literally stuck and I got to go pay the bills. And I worked with a really amazing American guy, actually, who was from Seattle, who came over great place and a great human. It was about a 5-minute drive, but out of remote access, like my phone wasn't on. I got there, was working with him, and he's like, "You okay?" I was like, "No, I think something's happened really bad." And a knock came on about 10 minutes later, and it was my friend going, "You've got to go. Your brother, who is part of my trust, he's managed to talk to the bank. We can freeze this if you go now." If you go now, and the chills come over as I think about that. So I race out, get into Southline reception and ringing him. I'm like, "I'm so sorry. I can't believe this has happened." He goes, "Doesn't matter. Ring the bank. You've got this." And I managed to freeze the amount that had gone into his account, but I had no idea how much it was. I had not been communicating with him except for saying, like, he'd been like, "Hey, how are you?" And I'm like, "I don't even want to talk to you. You're an absolute psychopath. What have you done? How dangerous are you?" Like, I had no idea what he was capable of. I'd watched Dirty John. Have you ever seen the Dirty John series?
I know of it, yeah.
Yeah, so I'd watched that with him a few months before that, and I was like, "Are you Dirty John? Are you New Zealand Dirty
He's
John?"
watching it with you?
Uh-huh. Yeah, he couldn't watch last
He's taking notes.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
taking notes.
Yeah, he also got notes of how to do it from like his time
idea.
in jail. Yeah, it's like, when do you go to learn about Conman? Oh, you go to jail to do that. So it was absolutely crazy. And that day I was like, okay, I've got to talk to my sister who's in London, who is like my absolute soul sister, but sister. She's 8 years older, but she was the one that actually ended up doing the podcast with me where we tell the story, Conning the Con. And I remember sitting on the side of my bed and it makes my throat just have this little bit of a grip when I think about it. And I remember sitting there going, "Nobody does this to me. Nobody does this to me. And I will fucking fight," was the words in my head. "I will get out of this in the best place possible, whether it's my financial, my emotional, my mental, my spiritual, my psychological. I will get through this in any way possible and he will not destroy me." And it was this weird moment that drove me through the day, the next few months, and probably to now, which is like 5-6 years later. And that day I then worked with the bank. My bank were actually amazing. The fraud department were able to, like I said, freeze it. And then they were like, "You've got 2 options. Option 1, you wait to see if we can get a police warrant and eventually get that money back down the track. There's no guarantee on that. We don't know. I can't tell you how much is in there," she said. And I was like, "Oh, I need to know this information. Like, how much has he still got? The 300,000 or the 150,000 US, or has it been changed? Like, how much is even in there? Is it $1 that's frozen? Has he moved it already?"
Wait, so I want to pause. Was it $150,000 or $300,000?
So New Zealand, 300,000, which is pretty much half.
Got it. 150K American. Whew.
Yeah. So, she's big. She's big, and it hurt a lot at the time.
No, not a small amount of money, but that is an important clarifier. Wow. Well,
yeah.
Okay.
And so then the bank you've got the second option, which is you convince this person to come to the bank with you and transfer that money back over to you. I was like, "Oh, I think it's option B. I think it's the second one." And so I know. Would most people choose that? I don't know. Would you choose that one, Tori?
For their health and safety, hell no. But for me, oh yeah, probably. I mean, who knows? Who knows? I have not been in this situation, so I can't tell you. Who knows?
My reasoning for it as well was I'm in a fully cameraed area. There is security around. I'm as safe as I'm going to get having this incident. So there was messages back and forth between the conman, and he's like, "Hey, has something happened? Hey, what's going on here? Oh, has your brother got involved?" Because he realized the money was frozen. Obviously, he was trying to use something out of it. And I was like, so I basically had to become a different person. I'm not someone that lies or that normally would perform or act, but I was like, I've got to pretend that this is not happening to me and that he doesn't know that I know. It's the only way I'm going to protect myself and the family and what's happening. So I ended up going to the bank, so convincing him, and he sent a screenshot saying there's $200,000 in the account. So I knew that that's how much I was fighting for at the time. 200,000. So 100,000 US dollars. And I was like, I need that money back. This is priority number 1. I went to the police on the way down because I'd been in contact with police. And the weird thing is, if he had attacked me or been in my house and done this, they would have been there straight away and taking, all the things that needed to help protect me. Because this was a different kind of crime, a white collar crime, then it was seen as it's not an immediate threat. And they're like, we know who he is because of his past criminal stuff. We don't think he is a flight risk, and we don't think he's dangerous. I was like, okay, I'm going to take you as your word with that. And they were
yes,
like,
I feel so much better. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking at that moment, it's like, well, are you going to come to the place with me, or am I not? Okay, I can just myself. So I went to the bank and I drove there, and the policeman was like, and make sure you get a photo of the license plate or something. I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be like, okay, just go into PI mode, private investigator mode. But I did. I was like, okay, I can see the car, take the photo and move through, which was actually another key part of the story around him conning the leasing agency around cars. There's a whole other piece of the puzzle, but not a big detail. And I walk into the bank and I can see him coming across the car park, and because he's been to the service station, which is right there, or the petrol station, as we say in New Zealand. And I'm in the bank, and the bank manager knows, the manager knows completely what's going on. They've got the fraud department on standby. We pretend we don't know, think that that's not happening. And the receptionist is like, how's your day? And I'm like, the fuck? How do I run? Sorry.
We'll see you in a bit.
How do I? Yeah, see you in a bit, day after. And he comes in and he gives me this hug and wants to kiss me. I'm like, oh, my body's crawling. And I just had to play the victim. And so I kind of wish I could see that video back, because it is just so scary, that moment in time for me. And it lasted, it felt like a very long time. But we had to sit on the couch while they got the paperwork ready to sign the documents. The manager came out and he's like, well, I want that money, the money in the other account, which was technically still mine but wasn't frozen. I want that out now. I want that $5,000 or $7,000, I think it was, out now and today. And she's like, well, I'm sorry, sir, we don't have that money on the premises. And his mask just dropped a lot more. This mask of calm, this behavior, it was dropping down. And I was like, phew. And there was moments when I sat beside him that he did these sly threats, which was really, really scary at that moment. One was around my brother, and that he knows people that will go for him. Yeah, that was one. And it's like, it shouldn't have done these things. I know some people, and it's like, oh, okay. And he's like, you shouldn't lie about people's names and something, because what he said to me around, because I'd actually done some digging that morning to be ringing up the trucking agency that he worked for, all these things to understand what was the truth and what was not the truth. The property companies or the real estate agents that he had documents signed with to say, hey, is this person legit? Do you know that you're actually possibly working with a conman? They're like, no, what? And so the threat he said to me is that, they can take your children away for lying about your name. Bearing in mind, I'm like, oh my goodness, can they? And I'm like, you lying because you are currently lying to me about your name. Anyway, so I got him to sign the documents. We went out of the bank. I'm like, please tell me it's done. And he's like, do you want to go get a drink? I'm like, oh, I can't really get back for work. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Yeah, I know. Get your ass out of here. And he left, and that was the last time I saw him until I think a few months later. The short story being, not though short, that's why it's in the podcast, Con the Con, is that the next 2.5 months I had to work my butt off to keep my version of the con alive, to help get as much money back as I could